Hello and welcome. Prime Minister Modi has announced the introduction of next generation GST reforms by this Diwali aimed at reducing taxes on daily use items. Now, I quote, he said the government will bring next generation GST reforms which will bring down tax burden on the common man. It will be a Diwali gift for you. This is, of course, a quote coming from the Prime Minister saying that, look, these reforms will directly benefit citizens and then stimulate economic activity. Now, today we have seen markets really cheering PM Modi's GST reform announcement. We have seen both the Nifty and the Sensex zoom in trade today, also celebrating Donald Trump's big hint on secondary tariffs as well as the S&P rating upgrade for India. So we are, of course, decoding the market momentum as well as what this means for the economy with Jayant Krishna, Senior Economist, G. Chokkalingam, Senior Market Analyst, as well as founder of Equinomics Research. Thank you both for your time. Jayant Krishna, a big and timely Diwali announcement then from the Prime Minister for consumers and for India's economy?
Yes, Sakshi. So it will be a huge Diwali bonanza if the proposals actually see the light of the day, which means that GST Council approves it and the Committee of Ministers actually approve it. Because today we have four slabs. 5% for daily use, 12% for standard goods, 18% for electronics and services, and 28% for more luxurious kind of items and what we call as the sin goods. So if all these four are going to be rolled into two broad categories, which are 5% and 18%. I mean, these are just speculations right now, and some experts are talking about, because government has not announced these specific slabs so far. So these four will be rolled into 5% and 18%. So what it essentially means that almost 99% of the goods, which are currently in the 12% slab, will gravitate to 5% slab. So, I mean, these are the products which are consumed big time by the middle class. I think so it will be a huge benefit for them. And almost 90% of the goods which are currently in the 28% slab will actually get into the 18% slab. And there is also a talk that there'll be a sin, or they're perhaps calling it a demerit goods category, where will not be too many products, just about 5 to 7 goods will be there, which may still be at a 40%. Things like tobacco, gutka, online gaming, pan masala, and from what it appears, products like petrol, like alcohol, this would still be outside the purview of GST, largely on the same lines as it is today. So I think, ideally I would have liked that, these products also to come under the GST gamut. But I do understand. I mean, if it comes there, then the government has to be prepared to sacrifice a lot of revenue. Even the current proposals, if these are to be believed, they will result into a net tax revenue impact, which is a loss for government of about 50,000 crore rupees. Now this is a loss, assuming that the consumption would remain the same. But all over the world, it has been seen that once the rates go down, the consumption goes up. So consumption goes up, then government would not have to levy any other additional tax or look at any other source of revenue, or be reconciled to a bigger deficit, because after a lot of pains, lot of hard work, our fiscal deficit has been contained, and that should not be allowed to go up. So I think largely the thinking is that consumption goes up, and even with the lower GST slabs and 4 rolled into these two categories, these two slabs, I think eventually government would not be a loser at all. That's the feeling, Sakshi.
Right. And our markets obviously cheering this announcement. We have seen both the benchmark indices surge in trade today. G. Chokkalingam, markets cheering the GST reform announcement and more, you think?
Yeah, certainly. This is a big positive, because one has to keep in mind the fact that the budget gave a lot of concession through direct tax. Now, Prime Minister has announced or proposed, rather, to give indirect tax benefits. So these are really bold decisions helping the domestic economy through both direct and indirect taxes. And it's more critical at this time because there is a need to strengthen the domestic economy, since we have a tariff war from the president of US. And therefore this is really very helpful. And third reason for which the market is cheering is that the corporate earnings, particularly the revenues, have slowed down. Of course, profits are much better than the revenue because of other income and exceptional, but otherwise, core revenues are in still in single digit. And if we have seen, the demand for consumer goods and durables, they are quite poor despite the last 3 years of good monsoon. Historically, the good monsoon always used to lift the demand for goods in both rural and urban ultimately, but it's not happening. So, therefore, the GST reform is really very critical in terms of lifting the disposable income, and that's why the market started liking it. And also, the Trump statement also has given a big boost. I hope this good time continues for some more time.
Absolutely, a higher disposable income, boosting domestic consumption, the need of the hour, and Krishna, amid the US tariff tiff that we are witnessing. Do you think this is timely? And for those wondering, okay, look, what daily essentials are likely to get more expensive? What is likely to get cheaper as a result of this announcement? What would you say to them?
So, Sakshi, yes, some may think that it's a response to US levying a 25% tariff and an additional 25%, for us importing, a crude oil, almost 40% of India's consumption from Russia. But I think it is a reform which was overdue. I mean, irrespective of what's happening on the US tariff front, this is a huge reform, a second generation GST reform, I would call it. This was pending, and it's good that the government has brought about this. The more they'll simplify, the more logical and lower the rates are, better will be compliance, and it will stimulate demand. To my mind, some of the product categories which will be very clear, immediately impacted would be fast-moving consumer goods, FMCGs like jams, jellies. A lot of packaged food items, which to my mind would move from 18% to 12% to 5%. They will move, and a lot of other products from 28% to 18% would be like two-wheelers, small cars, commercial vehicles, cement industry, cement production, and air conditioners, and a lot of luxury electronic goods. The simpler electronic goods were in 18% category. For example, if you look at a television, the entry-level television models were in 18%, but the more advanced models were in 28%. So all them would also move to to 18%. I think that be. So these are the sectors which will be impacted to a very large extent, and which will be the bulk of the economy, I would say. And no wonder today you saw Nifty 50 going up to almost 25,000 level, and Sensex going to 1,000, jumping by about 1,000. And also let's look at it. The GST indication given by the Prime Minister from Red Fort during his Independence Day speech, as well as S&P Global. They have improved. They have upgraded India's credit rating. So I would think that these two factors put together, and I think it's a good development. And also, some may say that it's India's response to very, very, a tariff which has been imposed by US on import of Indian goods, on export of Indian goods from India to the US. I think it could also be a response to that, although it's not directly connected to my mind.
Right. Lastly, Chokkalingam, for those wondering, okay, is this rally going to be here to stay, and what sector should they be looking at in the run-up to Diwali then? Your thoughts?
Certainly, they should look at the domestic themes, the domestic demand-driven businesses, because still there is no clarity about the reciprocal duty proposed by US President on India. So still that clarity comes, one has to focus on domestic demand-driven. And monsoon is so good, and 1% surplus, 92% of 36 subdivisions have received normal to excess rainfall. Oil prices also down about 20% from 52-week high. So all this would mean that within the domestic demand theme, one can look at the tire stock, because historically in the last 15 years, they are the biggest beneficiaries of crash in the oil prices, and therefore the natural rubber prices. One can also look at the banking and financial sector, because to my mind, reversal of interest rate cycle is inevitable in India in response to US tariff, and also as a consequence of good monsoon and record low inflation. So these are the two, and then one can pick up more, but one should avoid, the export-oriented, particularly to US. But there are a lot of themes within the domestic market which cater to the domestic aggregate demand. So that should be the approach now for the investors.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. Of course, we will track the fine print, but for now, we have seen markets surge on back of this announcement and more. And like he said, while of course you have to do your research and then invest as per in what you feel is right and your advisors. But the fact of the matter is, for now, markets clearly celebrating the GST reform announcement.